finding a lot of time to be kind to myself as a father, as a dad.
Welcome to Fika's Focus. Voices leading change.
It's been a while since I've done an individual podcast, but today I'm actually talking about the parenting course that we held a couple of weeks ago. But I'm going to do it as a perspective of being a father. I went along, obviously, because conscious parenting's been run by Auro Focus, but Courtney and I went along as being participants. And what was interesting to me was to help me realise that actually parenting as a father versus parenting as a mother is different, and we come across in different ways. But the reality is that we have to make sure that we're on board with what each other's doing. But a couple of things that really stood out to me as a parent and as a father. First thing is, not many people know this, but I do have an older son. His name's Cortez, and he is 25. I had Cortez when I was 16. He was V1 of me being a parent, and in that space I felt like a lot of my role as a father was to be the bad cop, and I was the one that was enforcing boundaries and all this sort of stuff and blah, blah, blah. That's what I thought anyway in that space, and it was actually not a nice gig to always be running. And then fast forwarding now with our children who are 9 and 7, I also default into some of those spaces. And what I've said, or what was made apparent to me in the parenting course, is that I have to unpack a lot of my own parenting experiences from my own parents, and namely really my mum. So going backwards a wee bit, my mum was really hard, and she was the bad cop. If there's a better way of looking at that, I'll find it out. But at this point, let's just use it for a reference point. My mum was the bad cop. She was the one that was really hard. She was the one that my friends had to convince if they could stay the night, and she was always a pretty solid no. And she was just, the further on I got in life, she became almost never defaulted into any point of being the good cop. And I have had to capture myself in that space of not defaulting always to the bad cop, not always saying no, not always being the one that's delivering the message or the doomsday message about their behaviour or what they do out in public and things like that. It was made pretty clear to me that we carry our own experiences, and what I want to do is actually give fathers an opportunity, and it'll be cool to see you guys comment in this space, because I genuinely want to know and hear about your own parenting experiences, in particular Māori and Pasifika men, and how they're dealt with. I think part of it is this theories of kind of, get up, clean yourself off, hurry up, toughen up, blah, 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 all that sort of almost unemployed parenting style in today. That was part of what I carried through in my own parenting space, and I've thankfully been lucky enough to go to things and courses and figure out that actually that's not how I want to parent. It's not how I want to be as the enforcer or the like I said, the bad cop. But it's then also about figuring out, well, what can I do that still allows me to parent and put in place boundaries, but also ensure that I can slip into being more often than not the good cop. So one key point about this is what that I discussed is that one thing I like to say now to my kids at the moment is, hey, how can I help? And saying, hey, how can I help, gives me an opportunity to actually go out, and even though there's things I want to get done and see how they get done, it means that I can actually sit down and help my kids in understanding that. So in the morning, it's like, hey, you got to make your beds and things like that. How can I help? I've actually sent them photos through to their iPad so they can see what we as a group expect to see around setting up the room and getting it all organised. But those questions of, hey, how can I help, allows me to be involved in some of those windows of helping set expectation around tidying their own rooms and, being part of that situation there. The other thing is that I try to do a lot more is, laugh a lot more, and what they spoke about is just unimportant conversations that really stuck out to me. Having the ability to sit down and just have unimportant conversations about what goes on in their day. Hey, like what do you think would happen if a shark suddenly got feet and could walk on the land? Oh, what would you do if $1 million fell out of the tree? What would what car would you buy if you could go and buy any car you wanted? All those sorts of almost silly conversations are an important method for helping sit into that space of being a good cop. I also think what's important is that I am aware when I capture some of those old pieces of parenting that I don't actually really like in myself. So, and sometimes if I'm tired or stressed and things, I might default out into certain spaces, but being aware of that sort of stuff is a really important piece. And one thing in that space is actually finding a lot of time to be kind to myself as a father, as a dad, so that when it comes back around to working with my children and helping them grow up and navigate what life looks like, that I actually have the emotional energy in me by being kinder to myself to go out and work with my kids in a way that allows them to feel supported and not just big bad wolf dad or bad cop dad sitting in that space and that they have to please me. That's probably where I don't want to exist, is that they have to find ways of trying to make me happy, which is, when I say that out loud, it's just bullshit really. As a Māori or Pasifika parent, and we grew up, I'm not saying that my Pākehā friends didn't have tough parents, I'm sure they did, but what I can certainly tell you is we did have harder parents and that I grew up around with, and they were hard, and everyone had the right to kick your butt and things like that. But what I especially notice is that in my own experience, love and care and being in a position to actually show care and love and empathy was not a thing. So that's one thing that I really try to do. I really try to make sure that I'm telling my daughters that I love them a lot, and my son, I tell him a lot. I'm always texting him saying, I love you, boy, and all those sorts of things, and making that piece available to my kids through my parenting and having access to me telling them that I love them without them feeling like they have to please me for me to tell them that I love them. So I think, in short, to wrap it up, really, we've got parenting courses coming out. We're going to be doing a dad's one. I've already know I've seen someone who's already volunteered their husband to be coming to the next parenting course. But I'd love to see some commentary about this, especially from our Māori and Pasifika fathers out there. If you are there, I'd love to hear your experiences about your role as a dad in this space, what it looks like from what you grew up around, what you were part of, and then what you are doing today. I think that sort of conversation could really bring some huge benefit to the community. So if you've got anything to say, write it in the comments. Up the wires.